Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today I'm bringing you a Kickstarter preview for Among Cultists, a big box social deduction game set in the world of, well, the mystical and the occult. In this game, you're going to be maneuvering around the board, trying your best to fulfill different research compacts. All the while, there is a cultist in your midst. You won't know who that cultist is, but the appearance of ghostly and or dead bodies might hint that there's more nefarious things going on than you and your crew are prepared to deal with. The object of the game for, well, the researchers, the team that are exploring this decrepit manor, is to find all the information, all the clues they need in order to stop the cult from completing their ritual and close the gates of damnation forever. And of course, the cultist wants to do the exact opposite by giving sacrifices to the deities that they worship and slowly bringing on the end to mankind, or at least the end to this little hamlet village here on the coastline of the Georgian Peninsula. This is a game that's heavily themed and based off of a very popular video game called Among Us. And my primary goal for this overview video, this preview video, is to give you a sense of what Among Cultists is doing, and then also refer it back to, or compare it back to that video game that it takes so much design inspiration from. Now, I do have a full gameplay here on the channel as well. It was a riot of a 5-player game with some surprise twists and turns across the way. If you want to find out more about the actual gameplay, I encourage you to go check that out. And of course, the link to the Kickstarter is at the top of the description down below. That's one of the best ways you can get more information on this title. But big box social deduction game. Now, this is not the first time that this publisher has put out a game in this similar scope, this degree of ambition. They actually have a title called Human Punishment, which had a smaller box version and then a big box version that I covered a few years back that has successfully delivered to over 5,000 backers, and as far as I've seen, people are really, really enjoying it. Now, Among Cultists is not going to be as complex as that one in its degree of maybe AP or little like levers and gears that you're twisting and turning, but the way that it stands out as a big box game is you're going to be maneuvering around the board here, and you're going to have a lot of different areas to interact with, and you're going to need to really work as a team in order to accomplish your overall mission. If you start distrusting everyone and not really working with everyone, you are going to find that the game is going to crumble and fall apart. You have to enter this in good faith that the group you're with has no cultists among you. And then you have to slowly weed out and figure out who is the lying scumbag that's pulling the wool over your eyes before everyone winds up dead. Alright, the general gameplay flow is going to go through a few cycles. At the very start of the game, you're going to set up the board with a few cards randomized, all these different rooms that you're going to be moving around, and you're all going to start at a centralized location. You're also going to get an envelope. In this envelope, you're going to have some condition cards, which are the cards that indicate whether or not you're alive or dead. These will be the checks that you get to make that you have to trade with other players when you make interactions with them, trading back and forth. You're going to have a set of hierarchy cards. These cards are the cards that actually order what rooms and where you can take the actions that you want to take as you play through the game. So you're going to be strategically moving from position to position, taking core actions in certain areas, and you're going to have an entire stack of successes, failures, and other condition cards that can be placed down in rooms. Now, the people who are just the researchers, the good-natured folk of this game, want everything to be a success. You'll be moving to rooms, you'll be taking actions there by placing down more cards, you'll be flipping tokens, indicating that you've done enough research or spent enough time in that room. Then you'll be drawing cards, revealing, hopefully, successes, and taking these books and placing them over here. That's going to indicate that you're starting to score victory points and move towards end game. However, if you happen to find a failure, or if you have to find one of the other types of subterfuge, you're going to do things like spawn cultists into room, the fishman might pop out, which you need the knife to be wielded to avoid his ruin, and you might end up having interactions with other players that could result in a death card existing in your deck. So that's the core premise of the game. You'll be working together, moving from room to room, following your order hierarchy that's hidden in your player pouch, and also taking actions in these rooms in order to check conditions, add more research to locations, and pull that research out of locations to score victory points to try to win. The group, the non-cultists, the civilians, will win the game if they score a certain amount of victory points within a given amount of time. Typically, they have about 10 rounds to survive, and the cultist is going to win if they stop them from scoring those points just by general manipulation, or if they murder everyone in the process. There is a point where the cultist can just say, "You're all dead," reveal themselves, and suddenly everyone looks into a mirror and sees that they are a visage of themselves, and they've been transporting around the map this entire time, just zoning through walls and possuming through buckets. I don't think that's a phrase, but I'll keep it. So, that's the core premise. That's the core structure of this game. Now, there are going to be more maps, there are going to be more abilities, there are going to be more creatures and more random things that happen. You see, we have a bag over here where we're going to have different events that happen from round to round. These can change things, like make it impossible for you to talk to each other or turn off the lights, meaning that every time you pass a group of people in the hallway, you all have to exchange cards. You also might end up having special abilities. These are tokens that you get that are also going to be hidden in your personal pouch, and these are going to have different types of abilities on them. Like, for instance, the coward or the clumsy. The coward can't interact with cultists or something like that, and the clumsy, if he scares away the fishman with the pocket knife, ends up accidentally stabbing himself, and he winds up dead after that happens. So you prefer probably not to be him. I definitely have not been him in past plays, and I'm not a little bit bitter at the fact that I landed on my own knife and killed myself, then losing the round for the team. Don't worry about it. So, that's the core structure. Now, there are going to be more maps, there are going to be more cultist abilities, more player abilities. It plays 4 all the way up to 8, and typically will lean best at those higher player counts. The 5s and the 6s are really the sweet spot for this, and if you get up to 7 and 8, you have other new abilities that get mixed into the deck and start having like assistance for the cultists or the ability to kill someone on demand. Now, let's talk about how this compares to Among Us, the video game. There's a lot of design elements here that stand out. Of course, the theme and the art style is going to be different, but when it comes down to it, you're going to be working as a team, maneuvering around rooms, trying to accomplish various different objectives and missions. Each room will have its own little puzzle that you have to solve. Some of them are simple, like playing down cards and trying to cycle those to score points. Some of those are a little bit more advanced or a little bit more complicated, like making a decision to spy on players or check different areas around the room through the surveillance room here, or for instance, flip on the lights throughout the entire facility. Every action that you take will be revealing little steps, and every time you pass someone in the hallway, you have an interaction with them. Do they stab you? Do they leave your corpse on the ground and you continue on as a ghost, or did you get out alive? Now, of course, you can't have hidden stabbings happening in this like you do in Among Us, but instead, you have this visage. You'll be playing down cards on top of each other's health decks, and then at any point, someone could check those cards to reveal whether or not you're alive or dead. That means you continue on the game as if sort of a Schrodinger's cat situation happened. You're either dead in that hallway or alive and continuing to play. And whatever has happened will be revealed when someone stops and notices your corpse on the ground or holds a mirror up and sees that you are a blue reflection of yourself. Now, if you do become a ghost, you don't get kicked out of the game. Instead, you actually get the chance to continue maneuvering around and scoring objectives. You get to work with the group to try to solve who the cultists are, pointing fingers and yelling and screaming, but of course, your powers are slightly more limited. Being undead has its advantages and also its disadvantages. So you might want to have some players go to the afterlife early on in this game in order to continue fleshing out exactly who your enemy is. Other things that compare to Among Us is going to be how modular some of the systems are. If you have the multiple boards and the multiple scenarios, you'll actually have various different maps that get built out from them, and then on top of that, you're going to have room locations that tie specifically to the region that you're playing in. Like this manor here that we're playing in has this surveillance room. This surveillance room allows you to do any of the research checks or any of the spy checks on anyone that's around this building. Here in the cafeteria, you can actually call a vote, just like you can in Among Us, the video game, pointing the finger at the person who you think is the criminal and kicking them out or slaughtering them on the back of a large pike. And if they happen to be the cultists, you just won. But if they happen to be one of your innocent victims, you now have killed one of your own, and you're moving the game one step closer to your final and punishing defeat. Now, the final thing that I think is a interesting twist on this system is our order of operation cards. Instead of running and hiding in a corner, you have stuff you have to do, and these cards are going to dictate where you can go and take your various actions. They have a color and they have rounds. The color corresponds to the different rooms that you have. The round corresponds to the round that you can use that action in. So everyone that is playing a normal civilian has to follow their order of hierarchy. They have to follow their turn structure. Everyone else gets the freedom to maneuver around the board, meaning the cultist and any minions that they have can actually break this turn order. But they may reveal, or they may play their hand a little bit too close to the chest, and they might end up revealing who they are by some strategic movement or taking advantage of another player's trust. This fits well in with the objectives in Among Us as well. You see, in the video game, you have all these different areas that you need to go to, missions you need to accomplish, some of which require you to be with other people, some of which need you to be completely on your own. You're going to be running around the ship trying your best to keep everything in line, and of course, the person who can break all the rules may just be following behind you, and you don't know that until you stop, have an encounter, and discover that you've been stabbed. So that's a general overview and breakdown of Among Us, or of Among Cultists. If you enjoy Among Us, if you enjoy that type of video game system, I think this is taking that idea and applying it to a new theme and applying it to a tabletop situation in a very interesting way. I think there's a lot of stuff that this does well. First off, the degree of interaction that you have and the forced objective that you're all working towards. The Cultist has a lot of opportunities to manipulate players before they even realize that they've actually been taken advantage of. And when we played, I was suspicious of nearly everyone. And that was fun. It was interesting to try to read what players were doing and the actions that they were taking and how that either reflected on their innocence or not. So, let me know down below, what are your thoughts? What other questions do you have about Among Cultists? And make sure you swing over to that Kickstarter and give them a follow, give them a like, back the project, take a look at everything they're doing. And whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing, get out and play some games. See you next time. Bye.